Here we are at the last segment of the first day of testimony in the class action 12711 VCS, Delaware Court of Chancery, Vice Chancellor Joseph R. Slates III presiding. Special thanks to our new friends at plainsight.org for making these true transcripts of the proceedings available for us to use. When we left off before the afternoon recess, Elon Musk was still getting hammered in cross-examination by Randall Baron of the plaintiff's legal team. So far, Baron has managed to conduct his cross-examination of this lead witness with almost surgical precision by already having the answers to almost every question that he's put to Musk. Questioning resumes on page 204 with Baron bringing up exhibit JX1237. It's an email from June of 2016 from Jason Wheeler, who was CFO at Tesla at the time, to Todd Marin, who was Musk's divorce lawyer during America's messiest divorce before becoming the general counsel at Tesla. Tesla announced on June 21, 2016 that they were making an offer for Solar City, but from the transcripts it's hard to tell if this email was from before or after that offer was made. Regardless, CFO Wheeler was trying to figure out with Marin how Solar City was going to be brought into the Tesla fold. He seemed to be under the impression that it was under the umbrella of Tesla while still operating as its own entity, while Musk had visions of it simply being absorbed into the same company with no distinction between them. Which makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you combine a solar installation company with no proprietary tech with an automobile manufacturer? That couldn't possibly get confusing for anyone. Wheeler was trying to plan out the capital structure considerations, as Musk put it, and this looked quite different depending on how Solar City was going to be treated. Solar City lost $900 million in 2015, and it was looking at losing another $250 million in 2016 through their existing game plan. Wheeler, as the CFO, had to find ways of mitigating that forecast, and he was approaching it as keeping Solar City separate rather than throwing all the assets in the pool they already had at Tesla. Wheeler was looking to the first quarter of 2017 for the cash requirements that Solar City would have, and at the same time capital expenditures related to Model 3 meant Tesla was going to need more cash as well. That cash raise in March of 2017 included selling $250 million in common stock and $750 million of convertible senior notes that will be coming due in 2022. Musk, of course, got first dibs on the shares and he bought 10% of the offering himself, likely by using his existing shares as collateral on personal loans taken out for this purpose. Now, in this article it notes the reason why Tesla was selling this debt was because they wanted to have a buffer for operations leading up to the Model 3 rollout. But on page 207, Baron confirms that Tesla absolutely did not have enough cash reserves sufficient to meet Solar City's cash needs upon acquisition. Then Musk goes one step further in his response, telling Baron Tesla did not have cash to meet its own needs in the absence of a fundraising campaign. That is, needing money to keep the lights on versus wanting a financial buffer as a safety net. Add to this situation the fact that cash was flowing out of Solar City as well meant additional strain, which was about to be compounded by the fact that federal tax credits for solar investments and electric vehicles were coming to an end in the short term. This was going to affect the capital structure of both companies, as Wheeler pointed out, indicating again that the two entities would remain separate. Exhibit JX2102 was brought up. This is a finance plan for the acquisition of Solar City presented in October of 2016, which was still trying to figure out how the two companies were going to work together. It was sent by email to Jeff Evanson in Investor Relations from Eric Sine, who is an assistant corporate treasurer at Tesla. Musk, chairman of both companies still at this time, isn't sure he ever saw this plan, so he's claiming to be unaware these projections stated the company needed an immediate infusion of $500 million to de-lever and de-risk the credit profile, and it mentions this is for Solar City specifically. For Musk to know nothing about this puts him in the oblivious column with regards to finances of the company. So it's a good thing for everyone else that Ernst & Young were hired on, even if after the fact, to conduct a full accounting of Solar City post-bailout, and their report is brought up as JX2392. This really should have been done prior to the final transaction given the results that were provided by Ernst & Young to the plaintiffs but not received from the defendants team, and Baron makes note of that. The communications being cited here are between E&Y personnel, and the first excerpt quoted by Baron tells the whole story. Quote, "There is a going concern issue right now in Solar City as Solar City is not going to meet its obligations." End quote. Baron asks Musk if he knows what a going concern issue means, and Musk does not. Musk is under the false impression and tells the court that it meant the company was at risk of going out of business unless it raised funds. That is not the definition of a going concern issue, just like a liquidity event is not a fundraiser. The Ernst & Young report would have taken into account the ability of Solar City to raise funds through a manner of channels, as Baron points out a number of times, and this is a debate that rages on for a couple of pages. Musk thinks the financial experts hired on to conduct this forensic accounting of Solar City post-bailout were absolutely wrong in their assessment. And at the bottom of page 216, Musk again falsely states, even considering the revelations made earlier in the day by Solar City's own special committee, that Solar City could raise funds of its own accord, which again doesn't answer Baron's question pending. So Baron asked the question again, is Solar City a going concern at the time of acquisition? Do they have enough money to pay their debts as they come due, considering what cash they actually have and what funds or loans or other sources of funds they can get? And despite everyone telling him otherwise, his own people on the special committee, the financial experts hired to conduct this report, his own president of the company, CFO, CEO, and probably even the contractors that weren't getting paid, Musk keeps saying that Solar City was a going concern, absolutely able to raise money without question. It's a fantasy, disproven a dozen different ways already in these proceedings, but Musk is still clinging to it. Baron wants to make sure he's got Musk on the record here so there is no confusion. Baron, do you understand that E&Y came up with the opposite opinion, that Solar City was not a going concern at the time of acquisition? Musk, are you saying Ernst & Young said Solar City was not a going concern? Baron, I am exactly saying that. Musk stammers, I would strongly disagree with that. Baron, are you saying they're wrong or you don't believe that's what they did? Musk, I don't recall them actually doing that. Chairman of the board and completely oblivious to reality. And it's about to get worse. At the top of page 218, Baron goes to the second page of the report where there is a draft of an equity support letter. Baron asks Musk if he knows what this letter indicates. He does not. Musk is under the impression this is a promise from one company, Tesla, to provide capital or equity investment support to another company, Solar City. That is not what these letters indicate. Letters such as this indicate that if Solar City couldn't meet its debt obligations, then, as Baron puts it, we, as the 800-pound gorilla, promise that we will pay whatever obligations come due. The letter doesn't promise any funds, it is a backstop and a last resort measure. It is not something required by a business that is a going concern. And Musk proves once again he doesn't understand the concept at the bottom of the page, saying it was written because Tesla was somehow preventing Solar City from raising funds. Baron tries to get agreement on the simple fact that businesses that are going concerns do not require support letters like this, that they can pay their own way and cover their own debts. But Musk can't even agree to this and launches into his loop of publicly traded companies raising funds. How Musk's lawyers haven't stepped in to tell him to knock off this shit is beyond belief, because it just makes Baron ask the same question over and over again until he finally gets an answer to it. In this case, a question pending is again yes or no, a binary choice. Have you spoken to any individual with any qualifications whatsoever that tells you that there is a reason the company gives an equity confirmation letter for a company that is not a going concern, to use the double negative? Musk says yes, indicating that he had spoken to someone, but when asked who, no names are provided. Then Musk uses a word that he has used before to describe Baron. The word is tragic. He used it during his deposition, and he uses it again now to belittle Baron. And all of a sudden it becomes obvious how Musk's legal team prepared him for trial. They sat him down in front of a TV and showed him the movie A Few Good Men, specifically this clip.
Is this funny, sir?
No, it's not. It's tragic.
Do you have an answer?
Absolutely. My answer is I don't have the first damn clue.
One of the lawyers probably should have told Musk that Colonel Jessup got arrested right after this.
I'm gonna rip the eyes out of your head and piss in your dead skull!
Baron has already put up with so much abuse from Musk it doesn't even faze him anymore, so he continues with Exhibit JX2392, this report from Ernst & Young. The report declares that the biggest impact on Solar City is SpaceX investments in bonds, and it appears that other investors in SpaceX have put pressure on SpaceX to get the money back from Solar City. Musk says that's untrue. He's aware of 0 investors in SpaceX who ever put pressure on him or anyone at SpaceX to get money back from Solar City at all. Now remember, these bonds were the lowest form of corporate debt in the grand scheme of things, the last to be paid out if Solar City went under, and E&Y reports that there is pressure from other investors on Musk to recoup that money. Musk doesn't believe the statement, but it is in the report before the court. This debt alone, as clarified by Vice Chancellor Slides, put Solar City in the position where they would be unable to cover their debts. At the bottom of page 222, still in the same exhibit, Baron brings up an internal email from Innocent Shumba to Keith Lupton at E&Y. This is the going concern analysis for Solar City, and in that report, Shumba notes that when they started producing this report, Solar City did not provide all the information that they needed. Notable omissions: they did not include the return, the need to pay back SpaceX, or the need to pay back the corporate revolver due in fiscal 2017. These debts alone put SolarCity below the threshold for being a going concern, leaving them $169 million short at that time, and even if SpaceX rolled over their debt continually, they would still barely break even. A second portion of the report reads, the company performed its fiscal year cash flow analysis and determined that as a standalone entity, it will not have sufficient cash to meet its obligations as they come due. SolarCity was not a going concern, despite what the chairman of the board, who can't remember conversations, presentations, or meetings, has to say about this situation. Because they were not a going concern, Tesla had to issue an equity confirmation letter, JX2447, signed by Tesla CFO Jason Wheeler and acknowledged by Lyndon Rive, who started working for Musk at Tesla as head of sales and services at Tesla Energy, because he had done such a great job as CEO over at SolarCity. Now we are into the third and final of Baron's massive binders of materials, which is going to dig into the process of the bailout. This is a carefully constructed timeline of events that Baron even color-coded for convenience. And Baron is going to go right back to Musk's 2019 deposition for some clarification, starting with the statement that Musk made, "I couldn't be recused from all discussions, I had to voice my opinion, obviously." To which Baron asks Musk if that statement was true, and Musk responds yes, obviously the board needed to know my opinion. The next statement Baron brings up is where Musk said he believed he had to stay on top of the acquisition. When asked if this was also a true statement, Musk starts waffling. "I mean, to the degree that I'm allowed to stay on top of the acquisition." At this time, Musk feels he would be remiss in his duties as CEO, doesn't mention chairman, if he was unaware of what was going on and not being apprised of news or any progress or issues. Since he wasn't CEO at SolarCity but was CEO at Tesla, he is trying to tell the court he was staying on top of the acquisition on Tesla's behalf. Yet as chairman, he knew all about the financial ills at SolarCity, and he kept that information to himself. Now, Baron lists off all the ways Musk apparently felt he could not recuse himself from this deal based on his actions, and it's quite the list. As the person who started the process, being involved in hiring the lawyers and the bankers, working with the lawyers and the bankers, discussions over exchange rates, meaning the relative values of shares of Tesla and SolarCity at the time the bailout was formalized, pushing due diligence, and ultimately convincing the shareholders that they should vote in favor of the deal. Musk laments that's a broad set of things, and it is, but Baron is going to go through every step of it with him. By the way, any one of these puts Musk in a conflict of interest position in this deal, a deal where he announced to analysts after Tesla made their offer, "I should point out I had no role in establishing this valuation for the offer that was made, nor do I with any of the mechanics that went into this. I was fully recused from the matter." That is a transcript of an investors' conference call and webcast that was filed with the SEC. Those were the words Musk used, fully recused, and nobody had even asked him a question in that regard, he just threw it out there for him. Then during his deposition, Musk declared, "Well, I couldn't be recused from all discussions." Well, what the hell do you think fully recused means? Fully recused means no contact with either party, no influence on the decision or the process, no public statements giving or withholding support, and certainly no role in establishing the valuation of the company, where Musk is asked if he played any role, and his reply is, "I had no material role." Baron pounces on this word material. It's a wiggle word that Baron calls him out on, which causes Musk to start talking about asteroids. Come on, focus man, you're going to get through this quicker. Musk is trying to obfuscate a scenario involving future predictions with recalling history, and generally speaking, all he's being asked for, even now, is the response of yes or no. Asked again if he played a role in the exchange rate between the stocks, Musk declares he was not involved in the price negotiations. Baron will wind up circling back to address that response. Right now what he wants to do is start the process at the beginning and clarify Musk knew at the very beginning of the process this was going to be a conflicted party transaction since Musk was involved as chairman from both sides of this deal. Musk says yes, meaning he knew that. However, knowing that didn't stop him from coming up with the idea and suggesting it to SolarCity without any authority from or approaching a single board member. Musk tries to tell the court that way back in 2006, when he was undermining Martin Eberhard, he thought solar was an essential part of a sustainable energy future. This is a phrase he uses 4 times in 8 lines of text. But Baron has the timeline right in front of him. Musk attended the cash planning meeting at SolarCity in February where their financial department was in crisis, then afterwards called Lyndon Rive to suggest Tesla should buy SolarCity, and that kicked the whole thing off. Of course, Musk doesn't think that's right because he can't remember it, but Lyndon remembered it just fine in his deposition recorded in Exhibit JX2777. Baron asked Rive, was one of the things that came out of this meeting a discussion between you and Mr. Musk about Tesla buying Solar City? Rive replied, it did not come out of that meeting. Baron, it came shortly after that meeting? Rive, it came shortly, I don't know exactly when the call was made, I forget the date, but he called me sometime in February and said I think we should acquire the company. See, it doesn't matter what Musk remembers. Lyndon already told Baron what he needed to know. This question was only to see how truthful Musk would be in his response. And on page 234, Baron again brings up the fact that Musk knew he would be conflicted in this transaction, yet he told the CEO of Solar City that Tesla should buy Solar City without going to the board, going to general counsel, or seeking an independent committee. For the response, just pull the string on the Elon doll. Solar City had to make a choice to raise money or get acquired. Cutting away the chaff, Baron directly asks Musk, you made this decision on your own after the cash planning meeting that you had with Lyndon, correct? And finally, the answer is given. Yes. Now was that so hard? After Musk called Lyndon, the next thing he does on the timeline is Musk tries to lawyer up. Without talking to any board member or corporate counsel, Musk decides to enlist Wilson Sonsini to represent him when he tells the board to go and buy Solar City. This creates yet another conflict because Wilson Sonsini also represented both Solar City and Tesla at the same time. Now Musk has to talk with counsel at Tesla, his former divorce lawyer Todd Marin, without any other independent board members, which co-opts Tesla's general counsel to work for him specifically on this arrangement. Marin should know better, realizing his job is to work for the company, not for any individual executive, but apparently he liked receiving a paycheck. So he started talking to the general counsel at Solar City about signing these conflict waivers that were required, thereby allowing Larry Sonsini to move forward, which they do without anybody on either board knowing a damn thing about it. And 5 hours into this first day of questioning Musk, Baron has had just about enough of pussyfooting around with Musk and his nonsense. He starts getting very direct. Baron asks, Mr. Marin signed the conflict waiver, correct? Musk, I think that's correct. He did that per your request, correct? But he is a person who, of high principle, and will not be co-opted. And no board member was involved in that decision, correct? Answer, I don't know. You know. The board didn't know anything about this until the emergency meeting you called on the 29th, right? This meeting would be set for the 29th of February. 2 days prior, Musk and Lyndon were in Lake Tahoe, not taking a vacation because Musk doesn't take vacations, and they called up Jason Wheeler, the CFO at Tesla, and tell him they need a presentation slapped together by Monday to present to the board Monday afternoon, outlining this bailout for approval. And Musk doesn't deny this. No other board member requested that, no other board member was involved, meaning that Musk has now co-opted his CFO and his team for Musk's own purpose. Wheeler testified in his deposition that he and his team spent 16 hours putting this presentation together as per Musk's request, creating a presentation for a conflicted party transaction that the board knew nothing about. Musk announced to the board on Sunday there will be a special meeting on Monday, and Wheeler's team got the presentation done in time for the meeting on February 29th. See, Musk needed this done quickly because Solar City was running out of cash, so Musk decided he would prefer to buy Solar City before it ran out of cash, rather than let Solar City go and try to get the capital infusion that nobody believed they could pursue. Nobody except for Musk apparently, who mentions 3 more times that Solar City could raise funds. Musk also complains again that these questions are very loaded. Well, they're only loaded if you have to fumble and lie your way through them, and it is Baron's job to ask them. We're at the afternoon of February 29th. Musk called the meeting but didn't send out an agenda for pre-screening, and Musk got the presentation from Wheeler at lunch to go over it. Tesla's CFO makes sure that Musk is aware because his headline for this reads, "In all cases, the transaction would be highly dilutive to EPS in 2016. And when this presentation was sent out, it was sent only to Musk. The CFO, if he was not co-opted, should have sent it out to everyone at the same time. Wheeler, it would appear, had a sense of humor with regards to this project, designating it Project Icarus, an irony lost on Musk but not on Baron. The fable of Icarus is where the character's father, Daedalus, made wings of wax and feathers for his son, who then flew too close to the sun despite his father's warning. Icarus's wings melted and he plunged to his death in the sea. That's how Wheeler saw this project, as flying too close to the sun and the company was going to get burned. This presentation, as Baron notes, did not contain an executive summary. This is where Musk would have, should have, told the board members why this presentation was put before them, and the reason why was because he had just come from a cash meeting at Solar City and they were going to breach their covenant. It also doesn't tell them that Musk had already told Lyndon Rive that Tesla was going to buy Solar City. Remember earlier when Musk was concerned he would have been remiss in his duties as CEO? It doesn't seem to bother him in the slightest right now. This was the time for full disclosure. But there is no discussion of cash needs and liquidity prices or even Musk's new favorite saying that Solar City needed to raise cash or get acquired. There's not even any mention of another of Musk's new favorite sayings, that an integrated solar and storage system needed to be created using Powerwalls and Solar City. None of this was mentioned. All of it should have been. Board meeting minutes for this session are JX849, and Baron notes under the heading Potential Acquisition that someone had a specific recollection about acquiring Solar City on March 3rd, 2015. We talked about this, remember? Except when they looked at those meeting minutes, there was absolutely no mention of Solar City. Baron asked Musk to scan through those minutes in JX306 to find any mention of Solar City, but of course he couldn't. So instead, Musk alludes to the master plan he wrote and unilaterally published in 2006 as having aspirations for acquiring Solar City. Except it didn't. Solar City is mentioned in that master plan part 1 as a company that Tesla would co-market solar solutions with, nothing more. In fact, through the 3,000 pages of material produced as evidence for the trial by Mr. Baron, there is absolutely nothing in the minutes, no emails, no tweets, no other recorded discussions prior to February 29, 2016, indicating there was ever any intention of merging the two companies. So let's go back to the minutes, and Baron notes a bunch of other things that should be in them that are not. There is no discussion about the liquidity issues Musk had been informed of 2 weeks prior at the liquidity meeting at Solar City on February 11, 2016. This should have been considered absolutely essential information to include in this presentation, but not a word. Not one mention of it in the minutes of the meeting, not one mention of why now, not one mention of Solar City needing to raise funds or get acquired, and in a tight time frame. And even without any of that information, Musk tells the court that the board said no to him. Except that's not even true. What was written into the minutes was this. After full discussion, they actually thought Musk had provided full disclosure here, and deliberation, the board decided not to proceed with an offer to Solar City at this time because of the potential impact on management team's time and resources in the near future. At this time, Tesla had a trifecta of major issues to work through. The company was bleeding cash, they needed to sort around the Model X production line, and the Model 3 launch was just around the corner. They needed to nail a cash-raised public offering in the spring just to keep the lights on. Still, the board didn't tell him no. They told him that this was absolutely the wrong time for Tesla to be considering adding more projects to the mix, but bring it back at a later date once these milestones had been reached. And just as a reminder, Musk didn't want to bring Solar City into Tesla as a separate company that was a going concern. He wanted to blend the companies, which would have required a complete corporate restructuring. This is Musk's only chance to prove the board could set a hard line for him, tell him no and stick with it. And in that, he has completely failed. JX2121 is presented. This is the proxy statement, and the wording of this has been modified away from what the actual minutes read to give a completely different narrative, one that through the omissions seems to favor Musk's story. But since it's completely different from how the minutes read, Baron exposes this as simply creative writing. Baron now wants to know where Musk's head was at after the February 29th meeting. Did he accept their answer, or was he already planning on how and when to bring this back to them? Remember, Musk is running out of time right now. They lost $1 billion last year at Solar City, installing tens of thousands of dollars worth of solar panels on houses that will pay the company a couple $100 a month, if that, meaning the more customers they attract, the deeper in the hole they went. So how did Musk interpret the board's response? Musk was disappointed. He felt the time was right. Now he tells Baron he thought the board might be open to a discussion of this at some time in the future. And that is not telling him no as he claimed. So that defense just went down in flames. Lyndon Rive in his deposition has a completely different interpretation, based on what Musk told him. Lyndon wasn't sitting on the Tesla board, so when he testified he knew the Tesla board wanted Musk to fix the Model X problems first, and then we'll think about Solar City. That is information he would have had to have been given by Musk. So Baron points out, given Musk's previous answers, that Lyndon must be misinterpreting something or lying, right? But Musk manages to slip out of that question without answering it. 2 weeks later on March 15th, at Tesla there is a regularly scheduled board meeting. Between the February 29th special meeting and this meeting, there had been a leak about the proposed merger, and the stock price for Solar City shot up. Baron says it bumped up 22% in a day, Actually, we went looking at historical charts, and here's what happened overall. This special meeting on February 29th would have ended after trading hours, and SolarCity closed at $18.43. The next day it dropped to close at $18.01. That same share was trading at the beginning of the month in the mid-30s. But 2 days after that meeting, as a result of that leak, it jumped 8% to $19.46. The following day, the news gained some traction, and it jumped another 15% to $22.49. That Friday, the stock was flat, but coming into the following week, it was moving upwards again, gaining a total of 45% over 7 trading sessions. This news kept the stock in the mid-20s for the rest of the month. Musk recalls nothing about this, no clue what Baron is talking about. Back to the March 15th board meeting, and Musk as chairperson is in charge of setting the agenda, supposedly. As Baron reminds Musk, that's kind of what the board chair does, but not Musk. Here at Tesla, apparently it's a free-for-all. And somehow, Musk isn't sure exactly how, the acquisition of SolarCity is back on the table. 2 weeks after being instructed to stand down for now and get the other issues at Tesla sorted around first, but here they are talking about it again. Somebody brought it up for the agenda. Musk isn't sure who it was. It may have been him. Of course, a straight honest answer isn't in his wheelhouse. The acquisition was proposed once more with no changes from the first presentation, and the answer that was brought back down from the board at this time on March 15th, 2016 was, the board directed management to instead focus its efforts on the execution of current business matters. And why would their answer be any different? Nothing had changed in those 2 weeks. Well, that's not exactly true. SpaceX had to roll over their solar bonds at Musk's unapproved behest, but Tesla's board wouldn't have heard anything about that. At that time, the board also prefaced what future steps would be necessary in looking at acquisitions, with regards to looking at future targets, plural, in analyzing the combined businesses. And after receiving that answer, Musk completely ignored it. Immediately after that meeting, Musk lawyered up again. Sonsini was too conflicted in this, so Musk worked with his good buddy Antonio Gracias to interview new counsel to represent Musk in a merger that the board already told him, twice, to put on the back burner. In pursuing this avenue with Gracias' help, Musk has now co-opted Gracias, a member of the board of every single Musk company with his own conflicts of interest, to interview lawyers and bankers with respect to getting this deal done. JX922, Baron is brought back to work with Musk and Gracias to help him retain corporate counsel. Within 10 days, this trio had narrowed down the field of law firms to 2 contenders, Kirkland & Ellis and Wachtell Lipton, whom they did retain, without board approval, using Tesla's general counsel. Now Musk, going into the March 31st, 2016 board meeting, has lawyered up, and is going to present this bailout proposal without alteration to the board for the 3rd time. The only difference between now and the other 2 times is that Musk brings the lawyer to the meeting. These minutes are listed as JX1131, and the only item on the agenda is strategic acquisition. Musk says he probably put this on the agenda, but couldn't give a straight answer when prompted. These meeting minutes are redacted, which seems absolutely ridiculous. And so is the fact that after being told to back away from SolarCity talks twice in the past month, with no material change in the presentation, with nothing sorted around at Tesla, the board now instructs Wachtell to undertake a review of the potential acquisition of SolarCity. The lawyer Musk had already retained without the board knowing anything about it was now going to be tasked with a review of this conflicted party transaction. No new presentation, no new valuation, nothing different than before, except Musk had a lawyer in the room. Remind us again what the Vice Chancellor set out as the standard of proof at the very beginning of this trial? The plaintiffs only had to prove coercive influence ability. Yeah, that sounds an awful lot like coercive influence ability to anyone paying attention. And now, Baron just needs to tie up a couple other loose ends. He lists them off. This was a process that Robin Denholm was not party to whatsoever in the days leading up to this decision by the board. Throughout these 3 presentations, SolarCity's liquidity problem was never mentioned. When SolarCity's guidance was reduced from 1250 to 900 megawatts, this information was not presented to the Tesla board for consideration. During these meetings, Musk never uttered the phrase, SolarCity needs to raise funding or get acquired. Although Musk again insists he said it several times, this never made it into the minutes, nor is it recalled by Mr. Baron, whom Musk claims has a great memory. And there was no discussion about the fact that they were looking at buying a company whose demand was dropping so quickly they had to drop their guidance by 28%. Coming to the end of this session, the 2-minute warning is given by Slights, gives Baron time enough for one more question on this topic if he can get a straight answer out of Musk. His question is lengthy, and has in fact already been answered, so this provides Baron a chance to summarize the entire session, and it is worth reading verbatim. There is no indication at this point in time, the boards of directors in these minutes, that this board of directors had any understanding of the information that you knew, that they were breaching the liquidity covenant, going to breach their liquidity covenant, that they were going to operate throughout 2016 at a negative net cash flow, that their sales department was broke, that their demand was going down, and that their megawatts deployed were sliding down from an expected 1,250 for the year down to 900. None of that information was discussed or told to the board when you got the board to agree to this process, correct? And even though all of this has been established, Musk still tells Baron, "I don't think that's correct." At this time, Baron demands Musk provide evidence that he told the board anything about the liquidity crisis at Solar City, but all Musk can manage to mumble is the same old shit. Solar City needed to raise money or be acquired. Actually, what Solar City needed was to be taken out behind the woodshed and put out of its misery. Misery that was inflicted upon it by one of the least qualified chairpersons in US corporate history. It's hard to imagine anybody worse at the job than Musk. Since we had so much fun in the third segment keeping track of the number of times Musk got stuck in a loop, we did it again for this segment, and it's even worse. The number of times he didn't recall minutes of meetings, presentations, or contents of documents. The number of times he couldn't recall key conversations. This is a new one, the number of times he told the court that Tesla had to raise money, the number of times he said Solar City needed to raise cash or be acquired, and the number of times Musk claimed Solar City could raise money in the public equity market without providing any evidence that this was true. That wraps up the first day of testimony, and when we reconvene it will once again be Musk on the stand, but thankfully not for the entire day. Halfway through day 2, we're going to meet the other Musk, Kimball the cook, and see what, if anything, he knew about what his older brother was up to. Thanks for tuning into this series from the Common Sense Skeptic. We greatly appreciate the growing support for the channel and our patrons who support us directly through Patreon as we wade through this case. Please like this video, share it across social media, and make sure you're subscribed so that you'll know when the Common Sense Skeptic returns.